live in about a second here. Perfect. All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. So we're going to get started in just about a minute here. I'm going to let people join. Welcome, welcome. All right. I think we're probably good to go. Eric, if you want to get started, I'll pass it off to you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Alrighty. Hello, everyone. My name is Eric. I'm one of the directors with the Zenith Fellowship, and I'm here to briefly cover what Zenith-Canada Pathways and the Fellowship is about, and then I'll be handing it off to Sophia, who's going to start us into a panel. So thanks, Sophia, and to SEDS-Canada for co-hosting this info session with us. Looking forward to hearing from the panelists today. The panelists are, of course, fellows, and they're going to be telling us all about their experiences in the Zenith Fellowship. So to introduce the Zenith Fellowship, the goal of the Zenith Fellowship is to build a more inclusive Canadian space sector. So we have 3 pillars to our program that help us do this. So the first one is providing a meaningful work experience. So that's an internship that we offer to fellows. We have some really cool companies that we partner with. We also provide mentors to all our fellows as part of our program. And lastly, we have a very supportive community that we've built up of the current and past fellows. And so through the fellowship, we've seen a lot of great connections and friendships being made. Happy to see that going forward. So these are some of our host organizations that we partnered with in 2023. So that's just this past summer from May to August. And we had fellows placed at these organizations. And so these are located all over the country: Montreal, Edmonton, Toronto. Really cool space companies out here in Canada. So these are some of our mentors. Like I mentioned, Zenith Fellows are matched with mentors. They're at different stages of their careers in the space community. They might be in Canada, or they might have Canadian roots and be abroad. They all have really interesting takes and insights to offer. So we're happy about our mentorship program, and we've seen a lot of success with that. Another part of our program, like I mentioned, is the community of the Zenith Fellowship. And every year we have our fellows come together for our annual Zenith Summit. And so this is a really awesome opportunity for fellows to meet, bond, make friendships. We have some really cool panels, and we have our mentors come out as well, and people from our host organization. So it's a really interesting mixing opportunity for people to meet each other and meet others in the space industry. And this photo here is actually from our this past July from our summit, and this was during our tour of the Canadian Space Agency in Montreal. So super cool. Like I said, Zenith is really focused on supporting underrepresented and disadvantaged groups into the Canadian space sector. And to support this, we are open to basically everyone. And these are the only eligibility criteria that you'll have to meet in order to apply. So as of May 2024, and so May 2024 is when you would be starting your internship with Zenith. If you were to go that route, you have to be either a current undergraduate student at some university or college in Canada or abroad, or you have to be a recent graduate from an undergraduate degree within the last 3 years of May 2024. You also have to be either a Canadian citizen, permanent resident, or a person granted refugee status. And this is to ensure you're able to legally work at the companies that we're partnering with. And then lastly, and of course, you have to be available to work during the summer of 2024. And so that's May to August inclusive. You'll also want to be able to attend the annual summit, which we are targeting to have July 24th to 28th in 2024, because that's an awesome opportunity. It's worth noting here, we have an applicants Discord that you should be able to also find through our website. And so join that, and you'll be able to ask some questions to Zenith Canada, the Zenith staff, or past fellows. So Zenith has fellows, both interns and mentees. So in order to offer more opportunities, we extend the benefits of our program, so the mentorship, the summit, the community aspects, to all the applicants who make it to the final round of the program. So if you're a finalist in our program and you interview but aren't matched with the host organization, you still are able to benefit from essentially everything that Zenith has to offer, and you are deemed a Zenith Fellow mentee. And if you do match with the host organization, then you're a Zenith Fellow intern. It's worth noting that mentees may reapply for the class of 2025. So you can apply again to try and again match with the host organization. We're certainly open to that. So this is kind of the key timeline that outlines kind of our selection process and what's happening. Our applications are open until October 13th, so make note of that date. After our applications close, there'll be 2 different rounds. And so you'll proceed through different rounds, and if successful, you'll make it to round 3, where we begin interviews, where we let you interview with different host organizations that are interested in interviewing with you. And so that'll run into kind of through December into early January. And then we'll perform the matching process to determine which of the fellows we've matched with which host organizations, and we'll do the final announcement of who the fellows are into January. And then the work placements again start in 2024 in the summer. So that's from May onwards. So that's all I have to say about this. I'm going to hand it back over to Sophia. We'll get into the panel and hear from some of the past fellows who have graciously offered their time to be here today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. So just to introduce myself, hi, everyone. I'm Sophia. I'm the president of SEDS-Canada. So SEDS-Canada is Students for the Exploration and Development of Space. We are a nonprofit organization, the largest student space organization in Canada, and we are all about promoting student engagement in the space industry. And so we are very proud to have a partnership with Zenith and answer questions that you have. And we have a nice host of panelists here who've participated in this fellowship, who are here to share their experiences with you. And actually, some of the panelists here today are also part of SEDS-Canada. So if you're interested in, being part of the space industry and just connecting with like-minded students, feel free to check out SEDS.ca to learn more about what we do. But that's just a little bit about me and a little bit about SEDS. Without further ado, we will get into the panel discussion. So to start us off, I'm going to have all of our panelists do a brief introduction. So if we could have the panelists just mention maybe where you went to school, or where you currently go to school, where you did your internship, and was it through the fellowship, and what year you did the fellowship in. So I will pass it off to maybe Charles can start us off this round.
Sure. Should I turn on my video or?
Yes. Yeah. If you're going to speak, feel free to turn your video on. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, my name is Charles. I'm currently going into my 6th year of engineering physics at the University of British Columbia. I was a 2022 fellow. During that year, I interned at a startup in LA, so not one of the host organizations, but I'm currently doing an internship at Sinclair Interplanetary by Rocket Lab, which is one of the host organizations.
Awesome. Manal, would you like to go next? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, for sure. So I was a fellow intern in 2022 in the same class with Charles, and I was interning at Skywatch, and I'm currently in my final year for computer science at Carleton. Yeah. Tiana, or yeah, go for it.
Yeah, for sure. I can go after. So hi, everyone. My name is Starchi, and I'm a fellow intern for the class of 2023. So I was in my internship with one of the host organization called Mission Control Space Services this past summer. And currently I'm in my 3rd year of computer engineering at the University of Toronto.
And hi, I'm Tiana. I was a Zenith Fellow mentee for this past year, 2023. And I am in my 6th year, I think, at Simon Fraser University studying sustainable energy engineering. And as a mentee, I wasn't I wasn't matched with a host organization, but I was finishing up an internship with the Canadian Space Agency as I kind of moved into fellowship.
Awesome. Thank you all. So as you can see, we have a wide range of experiences from our panelists here. And so let's go back to the beginning, if all of you can think back to when you were applying for the fellowship. Just to simply, what was your motivation for applying for the Zenith Fellowship? And maybe I can have Tharchi start us off.
My motivation for applying, it really was just trying to find as many opportunities that I can to kind of put myself somehow into the space industry. I knew I always liked space, but I didn't really know how I can get an internship or even network with other people within the industry. So when I came across the Zenith Fellowship, actually from Eric, because he posted about it in one of the design team Slack channel that I was part of, and I thought this is a really cool opportunity and that I should try it and see where that can lead me. So really just my interest for the space industry and just trying to find as different ways to try to break in. And I came across this and I thought this would be really cool.
Absolutely. No, that's awesome. I think it is definitely a great way to break into the space industry. And it sounds like all of you have had really great experiences and really been exposed to some amazing professionals. So that is really great. And maybe I'll pass it off to Tiana.
Sure. So yeah, the same as Tharchi. I think it was mainly just looking for opportunities to get involved. I still think that there is kind of a gap between like aerospace, like in school, and aerospace in the industry, and like how do you bridge that connection? And I think my experience, like from BC, there isn't a really big aerospace community compared to people in Ontario and Quebec who like have all these opportunities available. So I think having this Canada-wide like fellowship to get people across Canada involved and just kind of learn about what kind of space opportunities are out there, that was like one of the driving factors for me to apply.
Absolutely. And, as you know, Tiana, we even see that at SEDS-Canada, that it's really hard to get outreach in areas that are not as familiar with space. Like we have a lot of outreach in Ontario and a lot of outreach in BC, but it's tougher to get outreach in, the northern areas or eastern areas of Canada. So it's great that Zenith has provided you with an opportunity to experience space industry, and it's great that it's providing students across Canada with that same opportunity. So definitely something to consider if from anywhere across Canada. And I guess Manal, would you like to go next?
Sure. Yeah, I do not want to sound like a broken record, but like them, it was honestly to get involved in the space industry. And I think the main reason I was very keen on getting this fellowship was because I'm coming from a non-aerospace background or space background completely. So it honestly just 180'd my entire life in a very good way, obviously. But it was like a great catapult into just meeting so many people in space, which I was mainly looking forward to. So yeah. And Charles.
Yeah, I'll just jump in. I mean, most people covered, like all the other panelists covered everything. Like for me as well, wanted to break in. For the longest time, most of my internships were doing like software related stuff. So, but space was always kind of like one of my passions. And I cannot stress how, like Manal said, how much this fellowship gave me a 180 just in terms of like the community that inspired me to like really keep pursuing space. And I think that was kind of what I wanted, just having a group of like essentially like-minded friends, I want to say, that could like going towards the same goal. And that was what I got.
Absolutely. Awesome. Great responses. And I think a lot of people are in the same boat, Manal, is not really having an aerospace background. So it's definitely, I'm sure, reassuring for people to hear that, you can apply for this without an aerospace background and be successful and be exposed to the space industry. I know a lot of students, that's where they're starting at. So definitely look into this if you're in that situation as well. So I guess as part of the experience, you all had a mentor. within this fellowship. So can you tell me a little bit about your experience with your mentor and maybe some of the key takeaways, some of the things that you learned from your mentor throughout this experience? And I don't know who wants to start. Feel free to jump in.
I can start us off. So my mentor, her name is Chantal Dubois, and she's an amazing person. She's currently at the Canadian Space Agency, working as a robotics engineer. And just from, I guess, all aspects of life, really, whether it be professional or personal, or even just academic, she really gave me a lot of tips and tricks. In terms of like career advice, I've asked her about her journey breaking into the aerospace industry and some of the struggles that she had to overcome. And she's kind of passed on so many like lessons that she's learned along the way. And she also talked a little bit about any other like academic struggles that she's faced and how she's overcome that. So really, even her, like she came into the industry and she kind of didn't really have like she really taught me the importance of not having like a super solid plan, because sometimes you might not always stick to that, and it's fine to go in a very non-linear path to achieve whatever goal you have in mind. So I really learned a lot from her. And in terms of other mentors that I met throughout the Zenith Fellowship, we were paired with one of the fellows from a previous class. So I was paired with a fellow from the class of 22. Her name is Vanessa, and she's also amazing. So although she's not a professional mentor like Chantal, she has also given me a lot of tips and tricks from her experience as well. So overall, having two different mentors, one professional and one kind of still in like her academic journey, both of them have really like given me a lot of tips and tricks on how to like navigate my goals, I guess.
Yeah, two very great different perspectives. Both can help you in your journey. So that's really great. Charles, do you want to go next?
Sure, yeah. So my experience was kind of different. I was in a different time zone, so I didn't really time manage well. So I didn't meet as often with my mentor as both of us liked. And so I guess my lesson was more personal, learning how to time manage and respect professional. The fact that someone's giving their time to like help me out, and I should be more considerate of that, and also just manage my time better. But yeah, I'll leave it to the other fellows to talk about their mentorship experience, which I'm sure is a lot more colored than mine.
A learning lesson is a learning lesson. There's, multiple lessons you can learn, and hey, if you took something away from it, that's still great. And maybe I can have Tiana.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in. So I was paired with Bryn Orth-Lashley. So he works for GHGSat, which looks at kind of satellites and Earth observation in terms of like CO2 emissions. And that's kind of right up my alley. So I just want to shout out to the Zenith fellowship team who paired up like the mentees and mentors, because lots of my background matched with Bryn's, and so we had a whole lot of common interests to talk about, which was great to break the ice and kind of get to know each other. But yeah, I think one of the biggest takeaways from having a mentor in the industry now, I think, is like the support and learning about their journey into the space industry. Because what I've learned is that lots of people getting into space don't have a space background. So when I first met Bryn, like I was coming from the arts background, so I had no technical knowledge whatsoever. I just started in engineering, and I'm like, how do I get into space? Space is only engineers, which is a big misconception. So if you aren't from engineering, you can still definitely get into space as well. So for him to talk about his background in policy and background in astrophysics and kind of help me support my journey and say what kind of skills I can still bring to the table in space was really reassuring and motivating to get me involved.
And I can go. So my mentor was Bethany Downer, and she worked at ESA, Hubble, and the Space Telescopes. Yeah, she was so great, and I think she really gave me a new perspective on the way I approach imposter syndrome and just being a woman in space is just it goes a long way, especially when you're at the very start of your career. So yeah, I'm very grateful to have had her be my mentor for sure.
Awesome. Now I want to switch gears a little bit and focus on, being a first-time applicant and what tips and tricks you guys can maybe provide for people listening who are thinking of applying this year. So one question we have here is just, what are some tips that you would recommend for someone who's applying to make their application stand out?
I'll jump in. Oh, sorry, Mano. Yeah, I would say my advice is just to be authentic at the end of the day. Like the people judging all the applications are like volunteers from both the industry and the board of directors, and we're just looking, like a lot of them are just looking for authenticity and passion in space. So don't be afraid to express why you love space or why you want to join this fellowship, and yeah, just don't be afraid to be yourself.
Yeah, and just like tagging onto that, I think the key element is authenticity, because I think the best way to think about it is just if you wrote down something, or for your multimedia essay, whatever you ended up creating, if you just ask yourself, oh, how likely is it that somebody else has this exact same thing? And you are probable to say yes, then maybe it could use some tweaking to make it a little bit more unique and altered to you and who you represent as a person. So yeah, because I think that's the purpose of the multimedia essay, to just be able to just showcase yourself and yeah, show the best parts of yourself. So yeah.
I can jump in after. So I think one of the main things I wish someone had told me was like, just apply, like don't be scared. Although the requirements may look a little intimidating, and just like I used to read up on all the other past fellows and the stuff that they were doing in their undergrad before I even applied. And that really intimidated me, just because I felt that I didn't have the experience. But really just apply. What's the worst that can happen? You might not get in, but even still, you might be, still a mentee within the fellowship. So I would say just apply and don't be too scared and don't be too intimidated by the requirements, although it's easier said than done.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Just to apply, I didn't apply the first round. Once it got extended, then I was definitely encouraged by a few other people in like the SEDS community and the Zenith fellowship community to apply, and they're like, oh, what's the worst that could happen? They're gonna say no. Okay, then you try again next year. And then also just be creative. Just to nod to the multimedia essay, like it doesn't have to be super technical, it doesn't have to be like super out of the box. Like if you are artistic, or if you like dancing, like if you want to do like something that's interesting to you and you want to connect that with space somehow. I don't know how you would do a dance connected to space, but I don't know, if you're a dancer, then you can go, feel free to do that. But yeah, be creative and just kind of show who you are.
I think passion goes an extremely long way. That was the best piece of advice I was ever given. And even if you don't have a background in space, like your passion will go an extremely long way in any type of application or outreach you do with industry and professors. So be passionate, show your passion. I completely agree with all of you. It goes a very long way. It does. So kind of adding on to this, for a student who doesn't have an aerospace background, who's eager to participate in the industry, what can they do to make themselves stand out? I know we mentioned creativity and really showing yourself in the multimedia component, but is there any other pieces of advice that the four of you would give to an applicant who doesn't have a lot of experience in the aerospace industry per se?
I can jump in. So I would say really talk about just any like struggles that you've faced or anything that may have impeded your ability to participate in some sort of aerospace activity, whether it be like, oh, you were initially doing something in this field and you don't really know of other opportunities that you can do within aerospace, or you might just not have like the time or the financial ability to involve yourself in activities that are aerospace related. So really just be vulnerable about like why you weren't able to get into it from the get-go, because obviously not everyone's just like, oh, I've dreamt of being an astronaut from the age of 5. Like obviously, like not everyone comes from that. Sometimes people's interest in space comes a little bit later on. Like for example, myself, like I didn't even know I wanted to be an engineer till like I applied to university near the middle of like grade 12. So just being really like vulnerable and talking about anything that may have like hindered your involvement in space related activities. But also I think another thing about the Zenith program is that they really are looking for people who are well-rounded. So just because you're not super into space doesn't mean that you can't be. Just talking about other activities and other hobbies and other passions that you have and other skills that you've developed from other facets of like, you know, your life so far. And just making sure that like all those skills are still transferable to this industry. So although you might not have any space related things to talk about, just talk about why you couldn't get involved, and also just talk about other things that you've participated in, because I'm pretty sure there's so many skills that you've learned that are still transferable to any of the host organizations.
I'll tag along to that. I think my main thing was talking about what inspired me in space, and something that I found really cool. It's just so big. There's so much you can talk about. And even if you don't have something in this moment that comes to your mind about what like inspires you about space, just search something up, and I'm sure you'll just be so amazed by one thing at least. And you can talk about why that could be your dream project, or how you can connect to it in some way is something that I'd say. Yeah.
I can go next. I also think like finding the intersections between like what you're studying or what you're currently in and space as well. Yeah, just for context, before I transferred to engineering, I was in international studies. So I was doing kind of environmental and economic developments in terms of like policy. And so when I transferred into engineering, I was like asking myself how I could get into the space industry, which with this like conglomerate of like policy making skills. And it just so happened that the CSA opened up a position related to sustainable policy. So while the work I was doing wasn't really space related, I was put in an environment with lots of engineers and people that have a passion for space. So I think that was kind of a lucky opportunity, but I mean, there's lots of opportunities out there, either in like a space club or a tech club where you can learn those skills, or you can learn how to apply the skills you have to kind of have that like progression into the industry. I mean, everyone's path is different, but it's not like you're going to get from A to B. Like there's going to be twists and turns and different opportunities out there. So it's going to take some time, but like, yeah, there's opportunities out there for you to get involved. Like the Zenith Fellowship.
Yeah, for my answer, I think it's important to also just look at yourself and see where there might be existing skills that are applicable. Like a lot of Zenith applicants tend to be like engineers with like backgrounds in like coding or like mechanical, electrical. Like all of these skill sets are transferable in space companies. Like space isn't just some like isolated thing where we don't need people that can code, or we don't need people that can build stuff. There's probably a lot of skill sets that you already possess that are relevant to the space industry, and just don't like trick yourself into thinking that you don't have what it takes.
Absolutely. I mean, just to hop on that point, I think space is one of the most interdisciplinary fields that exists. Like we have people in business, health, medicine, we have politics, we have engineers. It's so interdisciplinary. So there's a lot of transferable skills in the space industry. So that's a really great great point. And, you can always find something that you've been doing previously and apply it to space because it's so interdisciplinary. So yes, great advice, great responses. And so I kind of want to switch gears again to reflect on your experiences in the fellowship. So how did participating in the Zenith Fellowship influence your career path? Did you make any changes to your career plans? Did you have any epiphanies? What is your reflection of your career path coming out of the fellowship opportunity?
I would say, oh my God, I totally just brain farted on the actual question, but I do remember this to do with career. And I'd like to say that it really allowed me to gain confidence in myself and what I'm working on, because I did start off computer science. Like the first time I ever coded was in university. So when I got paired up with Skywatch, I was able to kind of build my skills for sure. But then that kind of, Zenith as a whole just built my confidence into just like believing in myself. And then I think finding your niche in space, whether you're in aerospace to begin with or you're not, is something really special because it really lets you focus on something. And in this case, for me, was focusing where software and space intersected. And it led me to go on to more internships and like more successful internships, taking that with me and kind of building on to that. So and also I'd like to preface like the friendships I've made because of Zenith have just allowed me to just, oh my God, it's just like so fruitful. Like it's so it just like makes my heart really warm. So yeah, and it still affects your career because they kind of build you up too. So really like that. Yeah.
I'll jump in. So I think the space industry isn't like super big, like everyone kind of knows each other. So I think Zenith really helped kind of like, it's like a crash course into networking in space. Just from knowing even like the board of directors, I got to know so many other people that they introduced me to. And just through that, like I made so many like connections professionally and personally through Zenith. And I think that really like changed my career progression, and that like now like I would say my biggest network is in space, as opposed to before where it was like all kind of spread out over the place. And I think just also like getting to interact with these people really changed how I like really like ignited my passion for like staying in this industry, and definitely like made me want to just pursue opportunities in the space industry a lot more.
Yeah, I can jump in. I feel like prior to even applying for Zenith, so in my first and second year, I didn't really have a direction of my career in a way. Like I don't really know what I wanted to do. I was kind of just like applying to a bunch of places. But I knew I really liked computer hardware and electrical things. And I also liked space, but I didn't really know where that intersection would be between those two fields. So then being an intern at Mission Control, they are a software space company. And so I was able to see how I can, relate computer hardware, AI, and also space and robotics all into one. So this really helped me understand that, okay, there is a niche within the industry for people with these interests. So that really kind of helped me identify, okay, this is something that I like, and this is an opportunity that I can pursue moving forward. And just like Charles and Manal said, the amount of people that I've met and like my network just consists of Zenith people and people that I know because of Zenith. Just because you get to meet so many cool people, you get to interact and learn from so many people, whether it be people within your own, class, and also just like the board of directors and meeting the other mentors and going to the summit and networking with people there. Really, it's been amazing for both finding where I can fit in terms of the industry, and also just getting to know a lot of people and making a lot of new connections.
I think also just being inspired. Like I was like just meeting people at the summit and learning kind of their background, where they're interning, where they're working, and just learning about all the different opportunities that I was completely unaware of before starting this fellowship. And even like after this fellowship, learning about the conferences and places to travel and kind of how to get into the space industry once I graduate, learning about all this information through the connections, through the friendships I've made. It really encouraged me to go like, okay, well, Zenith is the foundation. Where do I go next? Because there's so many different places, there's so many different paths to choose from. So there's just, yeah, inspiring would be the one word I can summarize.
So I'm hearing a lot about networking, and also the summit has come up a couple of times, and I want to dive into that because I know that's one of the very exciting opportunities as part of this fellowship. So maybe if you all want to talk a little bit more about the summit and what was your favorite part about attending the summit?
Oh my God, my favorite part was just meeting everyone. It was so great to finally meet all of the fellows in person. And I don't know if Charles remembers this. Well, of course you do, but I feel like the most of the year, we always met each other on the different workshops and the different things, but we didn't really get to connect with each other. And then the first night, it was like an instant click between all of us. Like we were touring the hotel that we were in. We are just like going all around, and then we all happened to sit in the gym, like the literal gym floor of the hotel, and then we just ended up talking for like 2 hours. So yeah, but then obviously the panels and everything were so great and that was really fun to just attend and everything. But my favorite part was just meeting all the other fellows. Yeah.
My favorite part was also meeting everyone, and also the Canadian Space Agency tour. I feel like just like pulling up to the facility, I was like, oh my God, we're here. And then just looking at all the things and looking at like the Canada arm, the life-size model of it, looking at where the astronauts train. We had an astronaut come and speak to us. That was amazing. He even gave us like his mission patch, which we were like very like thankful for. So yeah, just going around the space agency and looking at all that cool tech that they have was really cool.
I would say the talks were like really eye-opening. Most people, the other panelists already covered like the personal aspects. Those were personally my favorite, but I'll talk more about the talks just so there's diversity in the responses. But yeah, like in school, like I'm sure like most schools, unless you're like doing research, active research with a prof that is involved in the space industry, you don't really know what's going on in the industry, just because usually it's like private contracts and like stuff is happening in the private sector as opposed to at university. So yeah, just like having people come in and talk about what they're doing in the private sector and like, or even in the public sector in the case of CSA, and learning what like is happening in space, which you don't often hear about in school, is just really eye-opening for me.
I think you all like covered everything. Yeah, I also think one of my favorite parts was just getting to meet everyone. I remember one of the first days or whatever, we had like a 10-minute break and we all just ended up in the hallway just talking and introducing ourselves to one another. Yeah, I think that, and then also like finding out about like different clubs and what other schools have in terms of space, and like how people kind of got to the Zenith Fellowship, and learning that way was pretty cool as well.
Amazing. The connections that you make, I think, are so important in the space industry. Everyone is great to connect with. Sounds like you've all had an amazing experience. So moving on from here, I mean, now that you've had this incredible experience, what are your plans for the future? Like, I guess reflecting on your experience, what do you want to do next?
Well, that was a very personal question. Uh, no. Yeah, so I think my current plan, kind of ambitious, but I'm hoping to work in space in Europe, just because there's a lot of opportunities there, and hoping to stay there for a bit and then eventually come back to Canada. US if I can, but ITAR.
I guess I can go. Everyone's laughing. I don't know. I still think, even though I am in my 6th year, I'm like nearing graduation. I think there's still a lot for me to learn before I graduate, and I still have one more co-op term I still need to do. So I think looking at some of the host companies that Zenith has and other space companies like CSA or MDA, just trying to do another co-op there and kind of expand on my current skill set and kind of look at what things I still need to learn prior to graduating. I think just kind of building up on those before I graduate. Long term, I have no idea what my goal is, but definitely something in space for sure.
Yeah, my answer is very similar to Tiana's. I also don't really know, like in the long term, in the long run, like where exactly I want to be. I know I do want to be in the Canadian aerospace industry. In terms of any like short-term plans, currently in the process of finding another co-op. So I will be looking into host organizations and kind of just looking to see where else I can intern at within the Canadian aerospace industry, just so I can also get some skills before graduation.
I think I was very inspired by a lot of people that I met in space, especially in the last year. And I'm hoping to do something in academia for space systems. And then eventually I'm hoping that down the line, I was convinced that I was not going to do software at all, but I actually do end up, I've kind of come back to it. So I do think I want to be in kind of like a product management role with space systems, kind of. I want it to be a little bit more technical, but we'll see where it goes. So yeah, that's the goal for the long term.
I know that was kind of a hard question to reflect on, but it sounds like you all have pretty big plans. So we will be following your journeys, and hopefully it all goes well, as I'm sure it will. And so kind of just to round us off here, what is one piece of advice that you would like to give to applicants who are applying now? Just anything that wasn't already said that you think is important to mention. What do you want to leave people with, I guess?
I would say just go for it and just don't doubt yourself, and you're so much more powerful and more I don't know, talented than anybody give. Like, I feel like we just don't give ourselves enough credit, and just reach out to any one of us, any of the fellows. I'm sure are so happy to answer any questions and give you more specific tips, but I would say just really just go for it and just try, and you'll never know. And yeah, your life could just 180.
I can add on next. I would say start early, but we're kind of nearing the deadline. So hopefully if you haven't started, start now. Don't be like me. I think I was trying to aim for the October 13th deadline, but I couldn't. I was like, I'm not going to make it. And then I didn't apply. And then I saw that they extended it, and I was like, okay, I kind of have to apply. This is like the universe telling me that I need to apply. So then I did my entire application in like 3 days. So I guess it kind of worked out, but I'd highly suggest to start a lot earlier.
To jump on that, don't also, like, if you're on the fence, like, you can also apply on a whim. That's kind of what I did, and then here I am. Not suggesting that you should not start early, but if you're on the fence, like, don't don't stop yourself from just applying on the out of a win. Yeah, and like also keep in mind there's so many opportunities in space. So even if you like don't end up joining the fellowship this year, you can apply next year, or you can find so many other opportunities. Like everyone in this fellowship is open, like they're all involved in other stuff within the space sector. And like you can always ask any of us, like, oh, how do I get involved? What opportunities are there? Like SEDS, for example.
Yes, if you're keen. Oh, Tiana, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just gonna say like what everybody else said. Even if you don't have a whole lot of experience in space or a whole lot of experience, even if you're in your first year and you're like, oh, I'm up against these fifth years, like apply and then say what you want to do, say what you aim to do, say like what you're interested in. Like that's what they want to know. Like what are your goals in space? What do you want to do? Not necessarily like where you come from. Yeah, definitely apply earlier than the deadline. I was also one of those procrastinators who applied last minute, which was really stressful, but you know, we're all students, so it happens sometimes.
Indeed, that is true. Deadlines creep up, and you got to watch and manage your time. But I think those are all the questions that we have for the panel. So I'd like to thank the four of you for your time and participation. And if anyone watching has questions, I know we're going to put up an email address. I'll pass it off to Eric in a second, that you can reach out for any questions. The panelists are also, I'm sure, happy to answer questions offline as well. And if you're interested in joining SEDS-Canada and building, you know, a network of students in the space industry as well, feel free to reach out to me or visit SEDS.ca to learn more about what we do. But thank you all for watching. Before we head out, I'm gonna pass it off to Eric to talk a little more about and end us off here.
Awesome. Thanks, Sophia. Yeah, so just to closing that out, big thanks to SEDS for co-hosting this info session with us. Thanks to our former fellows for being panelists today and discussing very, very frankly their experiences in space and all the ways this program has helped them. So I just wanted to say that, again, for a reminder for everyone that applications are due by October 13th. And as you've heard, it's probably a good idea to get going on that sooner rather than later. So please be sure to apply by then. You can also find us, we have a website, which is zenithpathways.ca, or if you still have questions for us that you want to discuss over email, you can email us here. The email address is info@zenithpathways.ca. So thank you very much for attending, and looking forward to reviewing many applications this year. Yeah, thanks all.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great rest of the night and take care.